Germany is situated in the middle of Europe, a land of diverse culture and tradition. From Bavarian homeliness in the south and medieval splendour within its centre, to its flourishing lifestyle in the east and large commercial cities in the north. A country which extends from the Alps to the North Sea. Our journey begins in the south, on Lake Constance. The harbour entrance is flanked by a lighthouse and the Bavarian lion. The historic buildings of the old town have mostly been preserved, and the facades of those of the patricians of the old town shine out in colourful splendour. The Catholic Münster Church is one of several churches of various denominations, a place of religious tolerance. The tall nave of the church is richly decorated with white stucco, coloured frescoes and carvings in Rococo style. The Pearl of Lake Constance has attracted since Roman times. The flower island of Mainau is popular. A paradise of plants on Lake Constance that was designed by Grand Duke Friedrich I in 1853. Although the island only has a perimeter of 3 kilometers, there's still much to explore. The second largest butterfly house in Germany, a natural habitat for bees, splendid examples of viniculture, and a fine arboretum. Today, the Bernadotte family, descendants of Friedrich I, reside in this, a castle of the Teutonic Order. Next to the Palm House is the Italian Rose Garden, and numerous modern sculptures and fountains surround the Baroque palace complex. Further north, Ulm was settled in 854 AD. The Ulmer Münster is a masterpiece of European Gothic, the church tower being the highest in the world, financed by the local citizens. The town hall, with extensive wall paintings and an astronomical clock, highlights one of the once wealthiest cities in Europe. Located on the Danube, Ulm's sturdy walls and towers offered good protection and was visited by emperors and kings. Craft guilds became powerful, ruled and subsequently failed, and the plague was merciless. Consequently, this once imperial city returned to being a small town. Regensburg is also situated along the Danube, Germany's medieval wonder, capital of Bavaria's Upper Palatinate, and also often described as Italy's most northerly city. The mighty dome of St. Peter marks the centre of the old town. The impressive episcopal church stands on the site of a Roman building. Following the example of French Gothic cathedrals, construction began in 1250, with a succession of master builders. Even though it is its medieval townscape that predominates, Regensburg has a long history. More than 2,000 years ago, the Celts settled here. Following the extinction of the Carolingians, Regensburg remained the residence of both emperors and kings, as well as wealthy merchants who became increasingly influential. Set in southern Germany, both culturally and economically, Regensburg grew quickly, a gem of the Middle Ages. Valhalla, a unique temple on the Danube. King Ludwig I of Bavaria had this classic mortuary built as a temple in order to commemorate the so-called German giants of intellect within the central slopes of the Danube Valley, close to Regensburg. Downstream, 3 rivers meet. The episcopal city of Passau nestles between the hills at the confluence of the Danube, Inn and Ilz. High above the rivers and strategically perched on a rock is the castle complex of Veste Oberhaus, imposing and impregnable. The salt trade enriched the town, and Italian Baroque masters were allowed to create the cityscape of the historic Old Town. For many years, it was the largest diocese of the Holy Roman Empire. Situated within its center was the richly decorated castle of the Prince Bishops. And adjacent, the cathedral. Fires and floods caused its reconstruction. The magnificent and impressive town hall attracts many visitors. Passau, the floating city. Near Kelheim, the Danube cuts through a wild and romantic rocky landscape. Isolated and difficult to access, this is the location of the Benedictine Abbey of Weltenberg. Gold and marble gleam in the twilight, and all around, angels and saints depict religious scenes. The center of its inner dome appears to open up to the sky and shows the gathering of all the saints in front of God's throne of clouds. Choir stalls of walnut are adorned with guardian angels and various inlays. A sacred area. There's also a small pilgrimage church and a monastic brewery. At Königssee is the municipality of Berchtesgaden. South of the Danube are the Alps, the highest mountain range in Europe. They're lakes with ice-cold water even in the summer months. Below the Watzmann, the Königssee is one of the most visited lakes in Germany. It features a world-famous echo that everyone wants to experience. A satisfying conclusion to our boat trip. Only by water can the world-famous St. Bartholomew Church, symbol of the Königssee, be reached. Beginning in Würzburg on the Main, the Romantic Road leads to various well-known historic cities, castles and palaces. Between 1642 and the middle of the 18th century, 3 prince bishops gave the city its Baroque architecture. And also the castle known as the Residence. Tauber-Bischofsheim is one of the oldest cities in the popular Tauber Valley. The city church, the Gemeinsche Amtsschloss, the Turmestar, and the old town with the neo-Gothic town hall and picturesque half-timbered houses keep the past well and truly alive. In Rothenburg ob der Tauber, or German Jerusalem, Germany's Middle Ages have been well preserved and each year attract millions of visitors. The main St. Jakob Church contains a high level of German Gothic art and some celebrated altars. The view from the City Hall's tower across the half-timbered buildings and city gates is quite breathtaking. A fairy tale-like city that is one of the most popular tourist destinations in Germany. Since the 12th century, Dinkelspoel has been owned by the Staufer. Friedrich Barbarossa gave it the status of a town and presented it to his son Conrad as a dowry for his bride, Berenguera of Castile. Originally, there was a Frankish royal court here. A settlement developed which later became a fortified town. This is around midway on the Romantic Road. Harburg is one of the best preserved castles in Germany, with 6 towers and a door system that leads to an inner courtyard, around which there is the Hunger Tower, parapet walks, Burgfried and the Prince's Building. This medieval town is located on steep slopes. Donauwörth is our next destination. In 877 AD, a bridge was built across the Danube, and an intersection of European trade routes was created here. In 1467, the city received the Great Liberty Letter of Emperor Friedrich III. Market rights and a mint ensured economic progress and the prosperity of its citizens. With the once rich city of the Fugger begins the last third section of the Romantic Road. Augsburg was founded in 45 AD as a Roman military camp. Due to the trading houses of Fugger and Welse, the city attained great commercial success. Detached from religious power. Located in green fields is the Wies Church. A church within a meadow, a natural idyll, Bavarian Rococo in harmony with nature. Developed from a small field chapel and the miracle of tears. Füssen is a fascinating town. Since 1313, both the monastery and town were under the control of the bishops of Augsburg, and since the Middle Ages, Füssen was also an important trading centre. With the Hoher Schloss that towers majestically above the old town. Both church and commerce brought it much distinction. Bavarian King Ludwig II made Füssen into a magical place, with Neuschwanstein Castle the realization of his amazing world of fantasy. This fairy tale castle was in every way the idyll of ancient Roman knighthood. Due to the operas of composer Richard Wagner, Ludwig discovered the delights of the Middle Ages. Telephones, decorated stone pillars, and everywhere motifs of famous Wagner operas. Between working and living room, an artificial stalactite cave with a small waterfall and white swan. Connected to a living room whose entire picture gallery is devoted to the figure of Swan Knight Lohengrin. Theatre artists created this dream world for King Ludwig from where he could no longer escape. Precious figures wherever he looked. And in the dining room, Siegfried fighting the dragon. In his bedchamber, the lonely king also showed his special love of pageantry. The throne hall is a most magnificent room, with lateral rows of columns and a gilded apse which is reminiscent of the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, and a precious candelabra in the form of a Byzantine crown. The monumental Singer Hall was built for the operas of Richard Wagner, and everywhere are motifs of Parzival, Lohengrin, and King Arthur and his Round Table. This is the end of the romantic road. Nuremberg, secret capital of German Franconia and treasure trove of the German Reich. The epitome of German romanticism and tradition, with a long history and also bitter memories of quite recent times. An imperial city which indeed became the City of Party Rallies, but which has never lost its benevolent spirit. The twin-towered St. Lawrence Church is the city's largest and artistically most important religious building. Gothic splendour within. The Pegnitz River divides the two sections of the old town with several bridges and footbridges. The historic area of Seebald has always been the domain of the city's long-established middle classes. The 19-metre-high beautiful fountain is set in a corner of the main square and is decorated with many biblical and courtly stone figures. The Church of Our Lady at the other end of the square is one of the city's landmarks. In the choir room of the Hall Church is the radiant Tucher altar. The Middle Ages dominates the old town, with Town Hall and Fembo House, a large and completely preserved middle-class townhouse. Built by a wealthy silk merchant, and then subsequently owned by patrician families Beheim and later Fembo. Seebalder Court provides an impressive panoramic view of the Nuremberg architecture of old, and the mighty Schürstab House, including a rectory and its chapel. Named after the Holy Seebald, the Seebalders Church ranks as the most important church in Nuremberg. Named after the Holy Sebald, the Sebaldus Church ranks as the most important church in Nuremberg, first mentioned in 1072. Its interior was furnished with valuable works of art, epitaphs, and votive images of the city's wealthy merchant families. In 1971, the Toy Museum was inaugurated. It features toys from around the world, both ancient and modern. At the foot of Castle Hill is the small Tiergartner Court, in front of an eponymous tower and city gate, framed by half-timbered buildings. There's a Dürer hare within sight of the Albrecht Dürer house that the world-famous artist inhabited until his death. Rudesheim, a wonderful medieval wine-growing town on the Rhine. Berlin, the new old capital city. A fascinating European metropolis with a dramatic history in which contemporary architecture merges with the imposing character of a centuries-old city. A melting pot of both history and culture. One of the most exciting cities in the world. A myth reborn. On one side of Alex is a striking neo-Renaissance building known as Red City Hall due to its brick walls. The Nikolai Quarter was built by the DDR government as a kind of Old Town, a European Disneyland to mark the city's 750th anniversary. On the banks of the Spree, Emperor Wilhelm II had Berlin Cathedral built. It represented the main church of Berlin's Prussian Protestantism. Nearby, in the suburb of Spandau, are the Hackerschenhofer, several tangled backyards that were built in the 19th century and contained both residential and commercial buildings. Berlin Central Station, the biggest rail interchange station in Europe, is situated between the Spree and Humboldt Harbour in the Moabit district of Berlin-Mitte. The state-of-the-art station was inaugurated in 2006. The Spree is Berlin's lifeline, a slow-flowing and calm river, yet one that has determined the growth of the city. A network of waterways connects the River Spree with numerous canals and lakes. It is spanned by 1,662 bridges, more than in Venice. Dem Deutschen Völker is written above the western portal of the Reichstag. This is where those who have been elected by the people make the country's laws. Today, the Deutsche Bundestag stands for democracy, a modern parliament with an historic ambience, crowned by an architectural masterpiece. Englishman Sir Norman Foster designed this, the capital's new attraction, a glass cupola and spiral ramp. The eastern train station marks the beginning of a trip on the Panorama S-Bahn, whose carriages are equipped with large panoramic windows. Exceptional viewing angles make experiencing the temporarily divided city particularly intense. We cross the Spree and travel towards Sudring. In the historic centre of the city is one of its most beautiful squares that was named after a regiment that was once stationed here, the Gendarmenmarkt. A concert hall and French cathedral form one end of the impressive-looking closed square. In the centre of the square, in front of a large staircase that leads up to the entrance of the concert hall, is a monument that dates back to 1871. It features one of Germany's greatest poets, Friedrich von Schiller. Between 1961 and 1990, during the Cold War, Friedrichstrasse contained what was famously known as Checkpoint Charlie. Directly behind it is the beginning of the Berliner Mauerwerk, a remnant of a sad chapter of the city's history, when both East and West were physically separated. The Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church is another reminder of the past. It was built to commemorate the emperor, but during the Second World War was badly damaged due to bombing raids. The largest and most splendid of Berlin's Hohenzollern castles is Charlottenburg Castle, whose wrought iron and shining golden entrance attracts hordes of visitors. In the Ehrenhof, outside the main building, is a bronze monument of the Great Elector. The country's first garden complexes originated in Berlin when the Hohenzollers created wonderful parks for their castles. Under the strong influence of Versailles. In just 5 years, a new city district was built around Potsdamer Square, a modern metropolis designed by famous architects, a masterpiece of stone, steel and glass. In 1945, this busy square was bombed to ruins, and then it was cut in two by the Berlin Wall. Today, it's an example of imaginative city architecture. We traveled to nearby Potsdam, a city of castles and gardens, and with an old town that features a lively market atmosphere. When the monarchy settled here, so did their armies, and with them came craftsmen, merchants, and artists from many countries. The castle, like Nauener Gate, leads to the Russian colony of Alexandrovka, and then to Belvedere on Fingist Mountain. The red brick buildings of the Dutch Quarter feature various shops. Everywhere, there's a spa garden atmosphere where visitors can enjoy nature and where formerly was Alfred Brehm's first zoo. Each year on the 7th of May, Harbour Birthday is celebrated. People from all the world gather within the various galleries of the landing stages to celebrate a huge festival along with the people of Hamburg. A great experience. Germany is full of history and cultural heritage. In the last millennium, the German nation, with its many customs and rich history, emerged from a multitude of Germanic tribes. And with its culture and many diverse and beautiful landscapes, Germany is now one of the most popular tourist destinations in Europe.